This was an interview with former President Lula. I'm going to play two clips of this is important. And at this point, I'm playing these Lula clips, one, because he is a political prisoner. He's the most prominent political prisoner in the world. Everybody besides Bernie Sanders needs to be calling for his immediate release. But also because in these interviews, I mean, this guy is a key strategist of our moment for how to actually build durable progressive governance, and someone with a lot of lessons that he's speaking incredibly open about from his own experience. And this is an interesting interview because this was done by Pepe Escobar for the Asia Times and some other reporters who are left, right? So this is like the most clear aligned. These are people who understand the success of the Workers' Party. They are interested in hearing President Lula's thoughts. There's not a lot of dumb, sort of Brazilian right-wing talking points. And everybody who's been following the show knows the facts of the case. And if you don't, please go into our archives and read the Brazil Wire as well as the Lava Jato leaks in The Intercept to understand Lula as a political prisoner as well as his enormous success as the president of Brazil. This clip is fascinating because if you recall, years ago it was, and they still meet, the BRICS still meet, Brazil, China, South Africa, Russia. But there was a much more ambition around this group in the Lula era. And there was critiques from the left. Is this just an alternative formation of capitalism representing the developing world? Yes, that was true, and those critiques were valid, and certainly the export and resource dependency of all four of those economies in terms of minerals, soybeans, agriculture, oil, and so on, covering those four countries. But you could also see here, and I think President Lula is speaking much more openly now about how aggressive and visionary what at least Brazil wanted to do to the BRICS. Now, I just say, if you're listening to this podcast, I'll be responding to what he's saying here, but this is subtitled, it's in Portuguese, so you might want to watch this on YouTube.
Eu imaginava, o BRICS não foi criado para ser um instrumento de defesa, mas para ser um instrumento de ataque. Tá? O BRICS foi criado para que a gente pudesse criar uma moeda própria, para não ficar dependendo do dólar nas nossas relações comerciais, sabe, que a gente poderia ter, para criar o Banco de Desenvolvimento que foi criado, mas ainda está muito tímido, sabe, para criar uma coisa muito forte. E para a gente ajudar no desenvolvimento da parte do mundo mais pobre. Era essa a lógica da existência do BRICS. É fazer algo diferente. Não é ficar copiando. E os Estados Unidos tinham muito medo, porque quando eu discuti esse negócio da moeda, o Obama uma vez me telefonou perguntando: vocês estão querendo criar uma nova moeda, criar um novo euro? Não, eu falei: eu estou querendo apenas me livrar do dólar. Eu estou querendo apenas não ser dependente. Eu vou vender uma caixa de fósforo para a Bolívia, eu tenho que comprar dólar. Sabe?
Mas essa é a base do império, presidente.
Por que eu não posso fazer na minha moeda? Mas é engraçado é que no tempo do Bush, ele aceitava essas conversas com mais fluidez do que o Obama. O Obama foi muito mais duro com relação ao Brasil. Eu tenho certeza que a carreira de Clinton não gosta da América Latina e não gostava do Brasil.
Claro que não.
Sabe? Tenho certeza disso.
Ela bombardeou o acordo que o senhor fez com o Erdogan e o Ahmadinejad no dia seguinte.
Eu tive duas brigas com ela, uma numa reunião que nós fizemos lá em Trinidad e Tobago, e outra em Copenhague. Ela chega atrasada, chega depois de 3 dias, chega querendo mandar. Você está na janela? Calma, senhora, calma. Espera a sua vez, pô, eu estou aqui, sabe, há 3 dias aqui. Então, é assim, a petulância, a arrogância dos americanos me incomoda muito. Me incomoda muito. Se bem que eu acho que os Estados Unidos é um país sempre importante e que a gente tem que manter sempre uma boa relação com os Estados Unidos. Então eu imaginava um BRICS mais agressivo, mais proativo, mais criador, sabe? Porque o mundo precisa de alguém que, olha, já que tinha caído o Império Russo, vamos criar um Império Democrático, sabe?
Since the Russian Empire is dead, let's create a democratic empire. So that's the type, I mean, just the depth of his strategic thinking is extraordinary. And if the BRICS were that political project, that's a vision of a counterweight that isn't just a counterweight to U.S. empire and hegemony, but a proactive and positive one, right? I mean, that's the problem with some of the China and Russian narratives is like, of course, there needs to be a counterweight to the United States. But what is it actually proposing? A BRIC foundation, one, the way Lula articulated, would be for a infinitely more just world geared towards the interests of the working and the poor. This second clip, though, is important because as we continue to cover China more, and I make no bones about my criticisms of China, I'm not an apologist for the Chinese system. I'm not an apologist for China's rights abuses. What's happening with the Uyghurs, as an example, is not a myth. That's a very real and horrific thing. The occupation of Tibet is a real and horrific thing, and so on and so forth. However, in the developing world, there is a huge amount of appreciation in some areas for China. There's an appreciation for Chinese currency. There's appreciation for some Chinese business partnerships. And there's an understanding that China carries itself with radically less hypocrisy than the United States and the European partners so far. And this specifically manifests in areas like climate. Of course, China needs to do a lot on climate. But when people try to shift the burden on them, just as with technology transfer, they are not recognizing the scope of empire, of industrialization, and how we got where we are. This story from Copenhagen that Lula tells, where he had China's back in this argument, and I entirely agree with him here, is fascinating and I think very revealing of a certain BRIC or developing world perspective on climate, on industrialization, and how the West relates to China. Check this out.
Depois, outra coisa que nós fizemos com os chineses foi na COP15 em Copenhague. Eu posso contar uma coisa para vocês. Eu cheguei na COP15, estava a Dilma e estava o Mink, que era o ministro do Meio Ambiente, e tinha uma lista de audiência comigo, Angela Merkel, Sarkozy, Gordon Brown, o Obama já tinha ligado 2 vezes, e eu não sabia porque era importante. Então, eu comecei a marcar audiência, e o que todos eles queriam? Todos eles queriam que a gente aprovasse na COP15 de que a China era o demônio da poluição no planeta Terra. Sarkozy chegou para conversar comigo com uma indústria cinematográfica, tinha uns 30 câmeras, era para dar um show, o Lula acusando a China. Aí eu fiz várias reuniões e para todos eles eu dizia o seguinte, ó, eu sei que a China está poluindo. Agora, antes da China poluir, quem é que vai pagar a poluição histórica que vocês cometeram? Qual é? Qual é a comissão histórica da industrialização inglesa nos Estados Unidos? Vai jogar a culpa na China? Não.
This is incredibly important. I want to also draw this to the extraordinary work of the UK Labour Party. John McDonnell just put forward in his speech to the Labour Party conference, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, he said, as we implement their own incredibly ambitious version of the Green New Deal, we pledge nearly no cost or outright free green technology transfer to historically colonized countries, because we recognize that UK industrial development, that isn't a moral claim, that's a historical reality, in part was built on a foundation of imperialism and colonialism, so we're just going to repay it. That's the politics, that's the actual historical reality that flows out of that analysis. And I thought that was very revealing. I mean, both of Lula's courage, and I think it's interesting because relative to, Chavez, he gets painted as much more conciliatory, but clearly he was willing to fight a lot of battles. But I think that perspective is like the best articulation of a lot of developing countries' arguments at global forums, particularly on climate, but even also in some of these new economic arguments and accusations about China. So it's important for us to understand. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.